First fact: productive individuals frequently organize their day based on natural energy fluctuations. They avoid forcing peak performance according to a set timetable, instead capitalizing on periods of intense focus and safeguarding them. During the initial hours post-awakening, the brain maintains concentration more readily due to reduced incoming signals, less social distraction, and a diminished urge to respond to everyone. Consequently, demanding tasks like drafting emails that require more than just rescheduling, conceptualizing architecture, performing model calculations, or outlining scenarios are allocated to the morning, free from notifications and extraneous browser tabs. This is succeeded by a pattern, roughly 90 to 120 minutes of deep work followed by a brief active break to shift perspective. This approach aligns with ultradian cycles of wakefulness, enabling completion without exhaustion. Evenings are reserved not for a final strenuous push to complete all tasks, but for a deliberate deceleration, reviewing plans and handling minor duties to preserve the next day's optimal focus. The second fact is that multitasking is not a superpower, but a trap. Shifting focus between tasks incurs an unseen attention tax. Every transition from one document to a chat leaves a cognitive trace, requiring the brain time to re-establish deep focus. Highly productive individuals acknowledge this and structure their surroundings to minimize these shifts. They consolidate similar activities into batches, setting aside specific time for messenger replies, a distinct period for phone calls, and another for routine manual tasks. Notifications are muted and brief checks of email are scheduled for 2 to 3 fixed times daily. Counterintuitively, this leads to faster response times. When email is handled as a whole, decisions are made in groups, preserving context. The notion of being everywhere simultaneously gives way to the practice of being fully present, which is the source of tangible progress. Fact number 3 is their possession of work entry and exit rituals, which are simple but predictable. The initial ritual is not an hour of meditation, but a brief sequence designed to smoothly set the mood. Opening the plan for the day, noting down 3 essential outcomes, tidying the desk of unnecessary items, and setting a timer for the first focused work period. The concluding ritual involves tying up loose ends, collecting notes, documenting completed tasks, defining the first step for the following day, and physically closing off work areas. This structure helps to lower anxiety when faced with numerous tasks of different sizes. The brain gets a clear indication: it has begun and it is done. This straightforward discipline proves more effective than ambitious plans because it eliminates friction, the resistance that occurs when attempting to begin each day anew. Rituals change work from an unstructured collection into a narrative with credits, distinct scenes, and understandable editing. Fact 4. Time acts as a container, and productive individuals proactively fill it. Rather than a wish list for the day, they employ time blocking. Essential tasks are scheduled in the calendar, not merely noted in a task manager. This triggers a framing effect. Time constraints do not restrict, but rather define the task, preventing it from becoming overly broad. Parkinson's law, stating that work expands to occupy the allotted time, is leveraged positively. A short duration is assigned, including a buffer for friction, instead of an indefinite period. The reverse timer method boosts focus. Initiate a 30 to 50-minute countdown and proceed strictly by the plan, without quality evaluation. Upon completion of the block, a brief analysis occurs, identifying obstacles, acknowledging facilitators, and deciding on adjustments for the subsequent cycle. This sequence of planning, execution, and review functions as a miniature assembly line, fostering a sense of control and increasing velocity. The fifth fact is that they view mistakes as material, not as a mark of shame. Productive individuals engage in brief post-project reviews and even pre-project analyses. Before embarking on a challenging endeavor, they identify potential pitfalls, pinpoint bottlenecks, and establish 3 key indicators that signal the need to alter their approach. Following completion, they record their learnings in concrete actions such as revise the brief template, implement a checklist for task handoffs, or decrease meeting attendance. This methodology fosters an internal locus of control, replacing thoughts of misfortune with the question, "What is within my control?" Additionally, a valuable practice is quick prototyping, developing a basic functional version, presenting it to intended users, and collecting feedback early on, before significant time is committed. This results in shorter development cycles, more measured decision-making, and discernible progress. In this framework, success is not a singular event, but a series of course corrections. The sixth fact states that for productive people, sleep is not a reward but a foundation for success. They maintain a regular wake-up time and ensure they get 7 to 9 hours of sleep, understanding that coffee cannot compensate for lost sleep. Their evenings are characterized by a calm environment, dim lighting, avoiding screens for 60 to 90 minutes before sleep, and refraining from conversations that increase cortisol levels. Caffeine intake is limited to daytime hours, and evening exercise is performed at a moderate intensity. Mornings start with exposure to light, opening curtains, taking a brief walk, or simply going onto the balcony to align their body's internal clock. When sleep is disrupted, they don't heroically push through sleep deprivation but modify their routine, rescheduling important decisions and incorporating a 20-minute nap without actually sleeping. A notebook is kept on the nightstand to jot down thoughts, freeing up mental processing capacity. Consistency, rather than occasional intense efforts, is key to building stress resistance and maintaining sharp focus. Fact 7. Productive individuals maintain a two-tiered plan, strategic and tactical. A weekly short review assesses project relevance and the achievability of personal and external commitments. They break down tasks from broad statements to actionable items, changing "write a report" to "collect data from 3 sources, draft an outline, and review with an analyst." Each day features one major item, a focal point for organizing other activities supplemented by several minor ones. Concurrently, an inbox functions. All new ideas, requests, and small items are collected in one place without disrupting focus, and then dealt with collectively. Additionally, the practice of saying no is crucial. Polite rejections and discussions about workload become standard, as success is defined not only by accepted yeses but also by defended nos. This system keeps progress on track, strategy remains clear of urgent demands, and the day avoids becoming chaotic. The eighth point is that productive individuals engineer repetitive tasks. Anything occurring over 2 times becomes a pattern or a checklist. They standardize file and version naming, possess presentation frameworks, draft emails with preset sections, and utilize quick phrase collections in text expansion tools. They master keyboard shortcuts and implement automation, mail filters, routing protocols, basic macros, and button-activated commands for routine report assembly. Consequently, the mind conserves its processing power for mechanical operations, as these are externalized. This leads to fewer errors during handoffs, faster integration of new team members, and enhanced outcome predictability. The key is not bureaucratic rigidity, but liberated focus. When the need to remember the standard procedure is eliminated, the capacity to consider how to improve it this time emerges. Checklists do not supplant creativity. They clear away distractions and make room for it. The ninth fact states, meetings for productive teams are a valuable resource used sparingly. The default is asynchronous. A document with context is provided, comments are placed in the tracker, and brief updates are structured as goal status blockers. Should a meeting be required, it will have a defined agenda, a designated owner, and a clear expected outcome. Participants are expected to review materials beforehand, and the meeting begins by establishing the specific deliverables, either a list of resolutions or subsequent steps with assigned individuals and timelines. Meeting lengths are precisely scheduled in the calendar. 25 or 50 minutes, rather than a full hour. The final 5 minutes are allocated for note-taking and information dissemination. The number of attendees is kept to the minimum necessary to maintain clear accountability. Topics unrelated to the main agenda are moved to a parking lot and do not disrupt the discussion. Following the meeting, a concise decision log is compiled to prevent team memory from relying solely on chat communications. This approach removes unnecessary syncs for sync's sake and returns meetings to their true function, to speed up, not hinder, the workflow. The 10th point is that the body functions as a component of the production system, a fact recognized by productive individuals. They incorporate physical activity into their daily routine. A 10 to 15-minute session of morning exercises, walking between work assignments, switching between standing and sitting positions at their workstation, and taking short stretching breaks every 90 minutes. They ensure water is accessible and opt for snacks that provide steady energy, such as nuts, fruits, and yogurt, instead of sugary items that cause energy peaks. Brief breathing exercises involving 4 slow cycles are employed to reduce pulse rate and regain mental focus before crucial calls. Discussions that do not require screen use are conducted during walking meetings. This change in environment promotes cognitive flexibility and alleviates stress. Positioning the monitor at eye level and the keyboard under the elbow are basic ergonomic practices that help preserve energy for later in the day. They manage their energy as if it were a budget, planning its use and replenishment rather than depending on spontaneous inspiration. Consequently, their days proceed without abrupt shifts, experiencing reduced back discomfort, clearer thinking, and sustained high performance. The 11th fact is that productive people have not just things to do, but also things not to do, a stop list that safeguards their speed more effectively than any motivational slogan. It specifies what they consistently avoid: refraining from opening messengers until after the initial focus block, declining tasks without a defined result and time frame, not joining meetings without an agenda and a designated decision maker, and not engaging with new ideas after 8 p.m., reserving that time for review. This kind of roster removes the burden of countless minor decisions. One doesn't have to debate with themselves each time, as the guidelines are pre-established. These are supplemented by anti-goals. Instead of aiming to lose weight, earn money, accomplish everything, the focus is on avoiding turning the calendar into a packed schedule with no free space, not taking on urgent weekend commitments, and not leaving tasks without a defined next action. Following these negative practices for a month leads to a clear positive outcome: reduced chaos, fewer unneeded commitments, and increased predictable productivity. The 12th fact: they engineer their surroundings rather than depending on willpower. The workspace is organized like a movie set. All necessary items for a scene are readily available. Anything extraneous is kept out of sight. The desk holds only the current project, with other materials stored in clearly marked containers. Crucially, the digital environment is managed. Separate browser profiles are used for different functions: analytics, communication, creative work, to prevent tabs from diverting focus. A scheduled Do Not Disturb mode is active. The smartphone uses a black and white display, and app icon badges are turned off to remove distractions. Instead of news feeds, home pages launch work tools. Access to entertainment websites is controlled by a blocking mechanism with a delay. Email is not set to auto-load upon system startup, but is opened during a designated time. This deliberate friction in design makes necessary tasks easy and unnecessary ones slightly harder, and this minor difference determines the day's results. The 13th fact is that productive individuals evaluate both the outcome and the workflow. They clearly distinguish between input and output metrics. Output metrics encompass sales figures, finalized script pages, and accomplished tasks. Input metrics include hours dedicated to focused work, the quantity of attempts made, proposal emails sent, and minutes spent on practice. For daily tracking, they opt for a concise progress tracker consisting of 3 counters, easily updated in notes or on a board. Examples include completing 2 focus cycles, practicing a skill for 30 minutes, or engaging in 5 interactions related to a key project. A weekly calibration is performed to identify which input metrics correlate most significantly with progress in output metrics. Any metrics not contributing are discarded. This method dispels the false sense of productivity where effort is expended without tangible results. With process metrics readily visible, the day transforms from a game of chance into a controlled experiment. Fact 14. Successful people systematically work on improving their mastery. Instead of working longer, they train more consciously. Their schedule incorporates time for tool enhancement, a 20 to 40-minute block for honing a specific skill against a benchmark, such as paragraph construction, typing speed without looking, or data analysis methods. Each short practice session is followed by feedback, a check against a standard, logging mistakes, and redoing the task with adjustments. Acquired knowledge is not drowned in a multitude of browser tabs. It resides in a personal repository of cards, summaries, and case studies, all tagged for easy retrieval. Reviewing material is done using spaced repetition. Today, then after a few days, a week, and a month. Live projects utilize a best practices library containing optimal solutions with explanations of their effectiveness. This cycle of deliberate practice steadily increases one's capabilities. Within 3 months, this improvement is evident to all. The same 60 minutes of work produce a more polished outcome as the tools are honed and execution becomes more assured. Fact number 15. They base their decisions on pre-established rules to prevent exhaustion from endless deliberations on how to act each time. Decisions are categorized by reversibility. Small, reversible ones are handled swiftly, via testing or pilot programs. Costly and irreversible decisions undergo a complete process, formulating a hypothesis, assessing risks, considering alternatives, defining success metrics, and obtaining a second opinion. A numerical threshold determines the entry point. If the budget, time, or risk exceeds X, a short note is written and discussed with a partner. Crucial matters are not decided when feeling drained. If pulse and sleep are poor, the decision is deferred until morning. Incoming requests are managed using a matrix. If a task doesn't align with my objectives and lacks unique value, I politely decline or suggest reducing its scope. The result is a clear log of decisions, detailing the choice and its rationale, preventing the team from facing the same dilemmas repeatedly. This isn't bureaucracy, it's a safeguard against impulsive changes in direction. 16th fact. Productive people's planning horizons are not mixed into one unclear haze. They differentiate between directions, objectives, and tasks. At the highest level is the theme for the year, a brief statement that aids in selecting between good and better. Examples include deepening expertise or team quality. Beneath this are quarterly outcomes with quantifiable metrics, and below those are monthly sprints and weekly promises made to oneself. Each day represents tactics, 1 primary focus and 2 to 3 supporting actions. This layered view ensures the calendar does not dictate the purpose of activities. Meetings held merely for the sake of meeting are filtered out by the question, does it serve the year's theme? Reevaluation happens according to a schedule. At the quarter's end, an assessment is made of what genuinely advanced the system and what was merely a show of progress. Should circumstances shift, the theme is not immutable. It can be modified, but with care and without haste. Consequently, decisions align logically. Each yes at a lower level is connected to the overarching why at the top. Fact 17. Social capital is integrated into their production process. They deliberately establish a feedback loop, which includes a mentor, a peer designated as a truth partner, and several individuals from adjacent disciplines who can identify unseen weaknesses. The meetings are concise and focused. A single document providing context, the question, "What action would you take in my situation?" and a mutual commitment to review in 2 weeks. A distinct accountability group operates separately. Weekly, members declare their obligations and report progress based on quantifiable metrics rather than verbal assurances. The objective is not to exert pressure, but to generate a constructive dynamic that refines their course. Assistance requests are phrased for ease of response, including specific examples, proposed solutions, and a set completion date. In reciprocity, those who are productive readily share their advancements, thereby sustaining the network's vitality. The outcome is a reduction in impasses, accelerated decision-making, and an increased availability of valuable second opinions at opportune moments. Fact 18 states that they safeguard speed using buffers, understanding that uncertainty is the standard, not a deviation. Within each project, there are defined red lines, timelines, and interdependencies around which buffer time is incorporated. This involves creating small intervals between tasks to prevent defects and delays from disrupting the overall schedule. For crucial deliveries, a contingency plan is in place, which might involve a backup supplier or a streamlined version fulfilling the primary requirement. The calendar includes reserve slots, 2 to 3 hours weekly that are unassigned, serving as a space for unexpected issues. Such an arrangement might appear extravagant until the first unplanned occurrence. Thereafter, the buffer proves to be a clear cost saver. This same approach is mirrored in personal energy management. Demanding negotiations are not scheduled directly after periods of deep concentration, and a day with no meetings precedes a significant presentation. A buffer is not idleness, but rather an engineering practice for reliability, ensuring success is repeatable rather than coincidental. The 19th fact is that their communications are clear and precise. Rather than ambiguous statements like "make it look nice," they employ a brief structured into 4 sections: the objective, the target audience, the criteria for completion, and any limitations. Each task is assigned a definition of done, specifying precisely what constitutes completion, who will perform the review, and the standards used. Communications via email begin not with a salutation, but with a concise one-paragraph context and a call to action, such as, "A choice must be made between 2 options by Thursday." Internally, team decisions are documented briefly, noting the date, the choice made, the reasoning behind it, and the responsible party. Discussions that lead to disagreements are documented separately, presenting alternative options and supporting arguments to maintain logical coherence and prevent it from being lost in chat conversations. Supporting materials like mock-ups, examples, and standards are provided promptly. The term "quickly" is replaced with specific parameters, for instance, by 4 p.m., 3 screens without animation. Such clarity results in saved hours of rework and reduced volumes of written communication. Crucially, it eliminates subjective emotional interpretations. When the operational guidelines are transparent, the pace of work is no longer influenced by individual moods. Fact 20. For productive people, rest is not left to chance. It's a project with measurable goals. They plan their rejuvenation with the same precision as launching a campaign. This might involve weekly digital Saturdays without any messengers, daily quiet windows set aside for a walk or reading, and vacations where work-related access is technically disabled, not just verbally agreed upon. Their rest includes deep play, activities that are both demanding and pleasurable, such as mastering a musical instrument, acquiring a new language, playing chess, or engaging in a craft. This type of play engages attention in a similar way to work, but uses a different kind of fuel, diminishing the urge to get lost in passive scrolling. Concurrently, silent energy drains are eliminated. late-night binge-watching of shows, constant news consumption, and pointless conference calls. They are mindful of seasonal patterns. Following periods of heavy launches, they schedule lighter weeks and a digital detox. Preceding significant negotiations, they adopt a strategy of reducing exposure to stimuli. The result is not merely reduced tiredness, but sustained high-level performance over time. Fact 21. Productive individuals utilize if-then plans. These are pre-established micro-scenarios designed to eliminate the need for in-the-moment decision-making. For instance, if I've prepared coffee, then I will open the draft for the primary task and write the initial 3 phrases. If a request arrives to take a quick look, then I will respond with a template that includes 3 choices for timelines and deliverables. And if 10 minutes remain until the scheduled call, then I will complete the brief, noting the objective, proposed solution, and outstanding queries. These connections link a trigger event to a specific action, converting intent into conduct without requiring significant willpower. Additionally, the task stacking approach is employed. A new habit is appended to a consistent one. This could be making a note about a book right after brushing your teeth, performing a brief stretching exercise after arriving home, or reviewing your inbox after finishing lunch. Furthermore, guard phrases are implemented, concise rules to manage temptations, such as, "I will write 1 paragraph before checking my messages," or "I will complete the protocol before closing this browser tab." These minor, automated actions create a framework that ensures the day progresses smoothly and without disruptions. Fact 22. Those who achieve success structure their information intake with the same rigor as their exercise routines. They inventory their subscriptions, retaining only those sources that consistently support their objectives. Everything else is placed in for later folders with deferred delivery. News consumption is allocated a specific time slot and quantity, rather than being an endless stream accessed reflexively. Lengthy articles are not left pending, but are transferred to a deferred reading list marked with "Why is this relevant?" and accompanied by a concise summary captured immediately. A few key points and a final takeaway. Digital notes are organized in a unified directory with project and topic-based tags, and incoming items are processed collectively to prevent unfinished thoughts from occupying active memory. A straightforward principle applies. Each hour spent consuming information should be matched by at least an hour of creating or applying it. This equilibrium prevents information overload syndrome. Rather than feeling overwhelmed, one gains clarity and knowledge is translated into tangible actions within the current week. Fact 23. They restrict unfinished work as the primary hidden impediment. Rather than 10 parallel workflows, a firm WIP limit is established. Simultaneously in progress is only that which is truly advancing. This lowers the switching cost and removes the buildup of semi-ready, stalled tasks. When initiating new work, productive teams evaluate the cost of delay. What will be forfeited if it's delayed for a week? And what will be gained if it's completed earlier? Planning occurs in short batches, and estimations are 3-point: optimistic, base, and pessimistic scenarios, along with a risk buffer. At the conclusion of a cycle, the plan is compared against the actual results, and benchmarks are updated. This ensures future estimates are grounded in history rather than aspirations. The straightforward idea is that finishing small items and realizing benefits now is superior to heroically tackling large ones without payoff for months. Consequently, the workflow becomes predictable, and the pace becomes accurate and consistent. Fact 24. Writing for productive people serves as a thinking tool rather than merely a way to transfer information. They keep a work log, treating each entry as a minor experiment, noting the date, formulating a hypothesis, outlining the subsequent action, and recording observations. When facing a challenging task, a flawed draft is produced, deliberately imperfect, designed to break free from perfectionism and reveal the solution's form. The structure is established through key theses, which are subsequently augmented with proofs and illustrations. Visual charts are employed during the exploration stage, and a linear plan is used during the construction stage. Final solutions are documented in brief notes, ensuring the team grasps the underlying logic, not just the end result. This written layer acts as external memory. It minimizes overthinking, accelerates the integration of new colleagues, and enables revisiting a past decision point a month later with full context preserved. Thus, the cycle of thought, documented, verified transforms into a routine operation rather than an exceptional accomplishment. Fact 25th. They have emotion management integrated into their process, as speed decreases not because of task difficulty, but due to unacknowledged reactions. Productive people practice the brief name it to tame it technique. They label their emotions with words and lessen their power. In critical moments, they pause for 90 seconds to breathe and reevaluate before replying. Difficult letters are drafted and sent after a review with a calm mind. Their schedules feature quiet times without triggers, and team norms include safe feedback guidelines. Work is critiqued, not the individual, and feedback is tied to observable facts and their consequences. They differentiate between the discomfort of growth and signs of burnout, such as lasting cynicism, a loss of pleasure in routine tasks, and persistent distraction. Upon noticing these indicators, a recovery plan is initiated. Reducing workload, getting enough sleep, talking with a mentor, and reorganizing priorities. This approach enhances the sustainability of their performance. Fact 26th. Productive people employ forcing functions, which are self-imposed limitations that turn an intention into a commitment. This isn't about harmful deadlines demanding completion at any cost, but about well-designed external triggers. A demo session scheduled for Fridays, a public status update with a precise date, an arrangement with a client for a mid-project review, or a nominal advance payment that makes withdrawal expensive. They send out invitations to showcase a prototype before work even begins, thus establishing the rhythm for the sprint. Within the team, control gates are introduced. To proceed further, a tangible artifact must be present, a draft, a layout, or a sample for testing. The degree of limitation is selected thoughtfully. It needs to be sufficient to propel forward, but not so much as to disrupt the system. This kind of environmental setup removes the can or cannot choice. The decision is already made by the schedule and commitments, and energy is then directed towards achieving the outcome rather than battling procrastination. Fact 27th. Visibility of work progress accelerates its completion. Productive teams make progress tangible, a status board with columns for planned, in progress, waiting, and done, along with a dedicated space for blockers, allowing the team to see bottlenecks and what's required to proceed. The focus should be on transparency, not the quantity of cards. Each card signifies a single unit of value, assigned to an owner and possessing a clear done criterion. Visualization aids in identifying hidden inefficiencies, extended waiting periods, repeated rework, and tasks without defined deadlines. A done feed compiles the history of completed items, a distinct log detailing weekly accomplishments and their significance. This panoramic view influences daily mindset. A lack of perceived progress diminishes motivation, while its visibility fosters a desire to reach completion. This principle also applies individually. A straightforward progress bar for a primary task or a checklist of 3 essential steps is more effective in prompting action than a vague instruction to get it done. The 28th fact. Their ability to negotiate project scope acts as a hidden accelerator. Rather than a simple yes or no, they use the phrase, yes, provided that. We can complete it by Wednesday, provided the scope is limited to 3 screens without animation and we have 1 revision cycle. They refer to this as the schedule-scope-quality triangle, and discuss which aspect is fixed and where flexibility exists. Prior to commencement, a minimum valuable version is defined. What will deliver 80% of the utility without any embellishments? Subsequently, review checkpoints are established. If by a certain date artifact Y is not achieved, the scope is reduced or the deadline is shifted, but without creating an illusion of complete control. Their correspondence features an options available template, quick, standard, and enhanced, detailing time and financial investment. The client makes the final choice and expectations are clarified. This approach removes the passive stance of "we were requested" and reclaims management, ensuring the project progresses not by momentum but along a mutually agreed path where each stage is safeguarded against uncontrolled expansion. Fact 29th. They rely on the accumulation effect. Small, steady steps are better than rare leaps. The minimal viable effort principle lowers the barrier to entry. One paragraph of a script, one request to a partner, one chart for a report. The bar is set amusingly low, but each day becomes a check mark on the tracker, and the brain stops objecting. The "don't break the chain" rule also functions. A calendar where the series of completions is visible, and a separate plan for instances of travel or sickness, a supporting version of the habit to prevent the series from dying. Math is in their favor. Improvements of a few percent daily or weekly, according to estimates, yield a 10-fold increase by year's end if the course is held. To prevent falling into self-deception, they select process metrics, minutes of practice, completed attempts, and adjust their course once a month. The important thing is not the magnitude of a single day, but the certainty of the next step. This is how a trajectory is formed that is hard to shatter with one setback. Fact 30. Digital hygiene and versioning serve as speed insurance. Productive people operate on the 3-2-1 backup rule. Maintain a minimum of 3 copies stored on 2 separate devices, with 1 copy kept off-site or outside their standard cloud storage. Every quarter, they perform restoration exercises. A random project is selected, and an attempt is made to reconstruct it from the ground up to confirm that backups are functional. Files are consistently named using a pattern that includes the date and version number. For instance, 2025, August 24th, report, version 1.2. Changes are recorded in a log to track the reasoning behind modifications. Version control systems are employed for code and text. Branches are created for new features. Merge requests include concise descriptions of solutions, and tags are used for releases. Upon sprint completion, a freeze occurs. The branch containing the stable version is archived, and unprocessed materials are moved to a sandbox environment. This structured approach saves time and reduces stress. Ambiguous terms like final, ultimate are eliminated, data loss from hardware malfunctions is minimized, and the team can more quickly grasp the context of any document. Fact 31. Productive people view delegation not as offloading a task, but as passing on accountability with defined parameters and metrics. They articulate the result based on the outcome, not the actions taken. By Wednesday, have a draft guide of 1,200 to 1,500 words, including examples and a checklist. The criterion for completion is X. They share the context of why this matters and specify limitations, adherence to standards, whom to ask for clarifications, and the location of reference examples. In the beginning, they provide guidance, collaboratively breaking the task into stages and performing an initial review at about 20 to 30% of the way to ensure the right direction, rather than micromanaging. Roles and expectations are formalized in a concise document, such as RACI, specifying who makes decisions, who provides support, and who gives final approval. Upon completion, a one-page post-mortem analysis is performed, identifying what went well, what caused delays, and what can be automated. This cultivates second-level power, Employees develop, critical bottlenecks are identified, the manager avoids becoming a choke point, and the system sustains its momentum irrespective of any individual. Fact 32nd. Productive people prioritize tasks not by which one shouts the loudest, but through a calculated assessment of value. They manage a task portfolio, assigning scores using straightforward scales: reach, impact, confidence, effort, ice, rice, cost of delay, and risk. The selection process has two phases. First, a comprehensive list of all ideas is compiled, and then a cutoff line is established based on the aggregate scores. Significant initiatives are subjected to a rapid proof-of-concept test. What is the smallest deliverable that can demonstrate a metric improvement in 1 to 2 weeks? If supporting evidence is not found, the idea is relegated to a graveyard to prevent inertia-driven resource drain. A monthly review of the portfolio is conducted. New data prompts a revised sorting. Task-related emotions and prestige are neutralized by numerical data, allowing a small task to deliver a swift gain while a high-profile project waits for environmental readiness. This methodology exposes underlying priorities and realigns the schedule with actual rather than perceived outcomes. Fact 33rd. Working agreements serve as the subtle mechanism for accelerating team operations. Effective teams, from the outset of their partnership, opt not for default settings, but for written agreements on communication channels and interaction speed. This includes defining when asynchronous communication is acceptable, when synchronous is required, the standard response time, and what constitutes an urgent matter. They set availability windows, specifying hours and time zones, and establish formats for status updates. Example, objective, progress, impediments. Rules for reviews are also set, such as comments by 12 noon, revisions by 6 in the evening, alongside a policy for addressing issues not on the current agenda. The tools employed are also integral to these agreements, dictating the single source of truth for tasks, the repository for decisions, and the location of factual data. Disputes are preemptively managed through a defined escalation process based on defined steps and criteria for either escalating an issue or leaving it in progress. Consequently, misunderstandings like "I assumed differently" are minimized, and resentment stemming from unacknowledged messages disappear. Meetings become more concise as all participants are aware of the established rules and expectations. Ultimately, team velocity shifts from being dependent on individual temperaments to being governed by the established system. Fact 34th. Productive people make swift decisions, relying on mental models, not on their current mood. They employ basic principles, initially asking, "What is the usual course of events?" and subsequently, "How does our situation deviate?" They examine downstream consequences. What will be the outcome if this succeeds or fails? And they tally the expenses of changing course. They flip the task. How can we ensure failure? And then cross out the discovered traps. For approximate calculations, they use Fermi estimation, decomposing an unknown into several rough multipliers to determine its magnitude, preventing protracted debates. The quick OODA cycle, observe, orient, decide, act, dictates the rhythm. Minimal data, a decision, a small action, fresh observation. This doesn't guarantee they are always correct, but it minimizes expensive errors and accelerates the feedback loop. Logic that is documented is simpler to refine than logic that exists solely in one's perceptions. The 35th fact highlights that productive people adopt a good enough on time mindset over perfect eventually. They establish a budget for refinement, including time and iterations, and beforehand, they agree on what quality is acceptable for the first release. The 70 to 90% principle is used. Bring it to a safe standard, release it, collect feedback, and then make targeted improvements rather than relying on intuition. Perfectionism is broken down into a risk assessment. What specifically causes concern? Flaws, reputation, or refunds? Each concern has a corresponding mitigation, a testing checklist, a peer review, a strategy for rapid corrections. At the conclusion of a sprint, a release ritual takes place. The artifact is made public, the date is documented, along with the criteria and those responsible for monitoring metrics. Subsequently, a backlog of deferred items is maintained, what was deliberately postponed and when it will be addressed. This method prevents perpetual just a bit more and delivers value earlier. Users offer concrete data, not speculations, and the team observes an outcome, not a perpetual work in progress. Fact 36. The architecture of the week for productive people is dictated by work types. They separate creator mode and manager mode to prevent attention fragmentation. Mornings are dedicated to deep work, scenarios, code, analysis, where a long, uninterrupted period is needed. Closer to midday, windows are allocated for meetings and quick agreements. The brain is already warmed up, but not yet fatigued. Days are given themes. Monday is for planning and kickoff, Tuesday for production, Wednesday for client interactions and reviews, Thursday for analytics and follow-up, and Friday for demos and retrospectives. Such a structure eliminates the chaos of random requests. If a topic is not suitable for the day, it is either parked or simplified. Within the day, blocks of 50 to 90 minutes are scheduled with sliding buffers in between to walk, stretch, or record conclusions. Routine tasks are scheduled during natural energy lulls, the afternoon slot, late evening. The calendar transforms from a display of busyness into a load map, where each section has its own rhythm and traffic regulations. Fact 37. Their understanding of time relies on data rather than subjective feelings. Productive people keep a simple log of their day's performance. They avoid excessive self-monitoring, but record crucial metrics: the duration of deep focus, time allocated to communications, and instances of attention diversion. This can be achieved through an automated tracking tool, a Pomodoro timer, or a brief 3-line diary. Weekly, a heat map is generated to identify peak productive hours and tasks that are perpetually postponed. Often, surprising insights surface. For example, that brief email reviews collectively take more than an hour, and locating a document breaks concentration for 10 minutes. Following these insights, their workspace is optimized. Folders are labeled clearly, task templates minimize effort, and minor checks are grouped into a single time block. This analytical approach eliminates self-deception and reclaims schedule management, shifting from an abstract desire to a validated effectiveness. Fact 38. The tools of productive people are hybrid. Paper and digital do not compete but rather complement one another. An idea's draft starts on paper. Its speed and tactile nature help bring out hidden connections and allow a thought map to unfold without menus or a mouse. The material then moves into a digital system, a place where it is easy to edit, share, and search. For brief tasks, a capture card is kept handy, a small notepad or a set of index cards. Jot it down, tag the project, and place it in your inbox without opening a screen. For organization, a whiteboard or sticky notes are used. They visually show what is moving where. Digitally, there is one golden catalog: notes on projects, decisions, checklists with simple tags and links to sources. The physical aids in starting and thinking broadly, while the digital aids in storing, versioning, and collaborating. The result is fewer initial obstacles and fewer losses at the end. An idea travels from spark to artifact without any gaps. Fact 39. During travel and in case of breakdowns, their system does not collapse. Productive people have a portable office and an unforeseen circumstances protocol. In their backpacks are noise-canceling headphones, a light keyboard, a charger, adapters, offline copies of crucial files, and a list of emergency contacts. Before flying, a mini checklist is used. Sync folders, upload reading material and drafts, turn off auto services that could activate while roaming. When changing time zones, soft adaptation occurs. Morning light, water, a short walk, and on the first day only mechanics without big decisions. Communication is handled in slots, pre-arranged windows for the team and clients. If technology fails, there's a paper plan. What can be advanced without a screen? Text structure, question list, interface sketch. This survival mode turns travel chaos into a predictable sequence of steps and delays into a chance to think further, not to be endlessly angry in line. The 40th fact. Their success grows by teaching others, following the principle of share and amplify. Productive team members convert their own findings into repeatable assets like concise guides, how-to videos, standards, and checklists. Every week, they tackle knowledge technical debt by asking what was done for the first time and how can we now achieve it twice as quickly. Beginners receive a first day guide and examples of how a finished task looks. Complex solutions are documented with explanations of the reasoning behind the decision. They engage in mentorship and conduct internal talks, which are 30-minute sessions showcasing actual cases, detailing not only the actions taken but also the rationale for their selection. At review meetings, the question is posed, what did we learn from this and how do we solidify this knowledge? And the lesson is promptly added to their repository. Through teaching, they uncover and fill their own understanding gaps. This process allows the team to reduce the time to achieve outcomes, and the quality of work no longer relies on a single individual. This is the genuine driver of productivity. Knowledge becomes a system. The 41st fact is about productive people and their method for handling incoming requests. They establish clear, standardized entry points. Instead of entertaining requests like, check it when you have a moment, they require a brief outline or a simple 5-part form. Objective, timeline, completion standard, data origin, and the approver. Work commences only after this information is provided, not due to arrogance, but to prevent time loss on deciphering needs. Their schedules include specific reception hours for immediate issues, with asynchronous communication, document comments, tracker tickets used otherwise. Email and instant messaging are compartmentalized. Work correspondence is in one channel, personal in another, and urgent matters are handled by phone to avoid a false sense of rush. Standardized response templates are ready for various request types. Yes, provided that. I'm unable at this moment, but I can suggest. I'm open to discussing once is established. This approach minimizes emotional fluctuations and transforms communication from reactive to a structured flow, resulting in fewer ambiguities, quicker initiation, and more predictable conclusions. Fact 42. Their perspective on time is that of capital rather than sand held in a hand. A shadow hourly rate serves as a guideline for evaluating tasks, whether to perform them personally, automate them, or delegate them. Attention is managed like an investment portfolio within the calendar. Morning periods are dedicated to projects promising the highest return on investment, while later slots are reserved for less impactful activities. The principle of paying yourself first is in effect. The initial 60 to 90 minutes of the day are focused on the primary asset that generates value over a month, not immediately. A return on investment audit occurs weekly, assessing which actions delivered tangible outcomes and which merely simulated productivity. Superfluous actions are eliminated decisively. They consider the cost of delay. If procrastination leads to a lost opportunity, the task's priority is elevated. Similar to financial practices, they diversify their time. Some is allocated to experimental ventures, some to established routines, and some to system upkeep, sleep, education, networking, all crucial for preventing capital devaluation. Fact 43. It is paradoxical, but productive people carefully cultivate boredom. Brief periods of no incoming signals, giving the brain an opportunity to link ideas. Going for walks without headphones, taking showers without listening to podcasts, or spending 10 minutes on the balcony in the morning with an unfocused gaze at the sky are not signs of idleness. Instead, they are intentionally created quiet times for the brain's default mode network to operate, which is where insights often arise. Before engaging in creative tasks, they switch to an input-off mode, an hour dedicated solely to their own rough notes and an empty page, without reviewing the ideas of others. Their phone is placed in a different room, their laptop is put into airplane mode, and their watches are silenced from notifications. A notepad is kept nearby. Thoughts are captured and then redirected back to the main task, preventing them from straying into unrelated tangents. This kind of silence incubator lessens the impact of information overload and allows deeper thinking to surface. It is frequently in these moments that an idea, which had been inactive for weeks and unable to emerge amidst the surrounding noise, is discovered. A clear thesis statement, a surprising link between concepts, or a solution to conflicting demands. Fact 44th. Developing resilience is achieved by regularly practicing controlled risks in small amounts. Rather than infrequent, bold actions, the approach is one act of courage daily. This could involve sending an email to a prospective partner, sharing an early prototype with a select group, or asking a critical reviewer for their input. A record of rejections is maintained, tracking not just successes, but also the number of attempts made to distinguish outcomes from efforts. To manage apprehension, preventative measures are in place: a quality check before releasing work, a contingency plan for receiving criticism, and established limits for discussions. Crucially, one must separate their personal identity from their work. The focus is on discussing the product or idea, not the individual's value. A supportive environment for initial presentations includes colleagues who understand the background and can offer precise feedback. This practice of small acts of boldness cultivates resistance to negative feedback and accelerates the feedback cycle, leading to reduced self-sabotage and an increase in actionable data for making improvements. The 45th fact. Their primary driver is their reputation capital, built on predictability, which fosters trust. Productive individuals make promises carefully, execute them accurately, and provide advance notice of any forecast changes. I foresee a risk of missing the Thursday deadline due to X. I suggest option A, reducing the scope, or option B, moving the date. They adhere to a red button principle, acknowledging errors publicly and promptly, along with a plan for rectification rather than justifications. Communications and meetings conclude with a loop closure, summarizing the outcome, decisions made, assigned responsibilities, and deadlines within a single paragraph. They express gratitude for contributions and highlight the accomplishments of others, thereby lowering future transaction costs. People are more inclined to assist those who consistently adhere to established guidelines. A pattern of fulfilling minor promises accumulates as a trust credit, which expedites agreement processes, creates opportunities, and minimizes the need for excessive verification. Consequently, speed is achieved not through individual effort, but as a product of shared dependability. Fact 46th. Productive people avoid a half-lived life. Each incoming item is a decision point. They conduct brief processing sessions with 3 firm steps. Step 1 is sifting. Remove, unsubscribe from, or block valueless sources. This also includes requests lacking a clear goal or deadline. Step 2 is directing. If a task takes under 2 minutes, do it now. If longer, assign a clear next action and schedule it for this week or the calendar, not a vague someday. Step 3 is delegating, based on relevance, not job title. Pass it to someone with the authority and resources, specifying done criteria. Think about it later is eliminated as it's merely masked procrastination. Emails are flagged by their result. Reply, resolved, pending. Chats conclude with a protocol. Result, responsible person, deadline. This one-touch approach clears out unfinished business and reduces persistent background stress from minor outstanding items. The 47th fact is that their taste is not inherent but cultivated through a collection of standards. High-performing individuals gather swipe files, which are top examples of emails, scripts, presentations, interfaces, and proposals. They regularly perform an anatomy of success to understand the reasons for effectiveness, the decisions made, and the principles that can be generalized. Each standard example is turned into a small quality checklist. For written content, it means a clear objective, logical flow, supporting elements, and pacing. For presentation slides, it involves hierarchy, contrast, and a single main point per slide. For a product, it's the user's view of readiness. Before release, a draft is reviewed against 2 or 3 benchmarks to identify what can be adopted fundamentally, not just superficially. This process results in a standard builder. It's about applying the solution structure to your own content, not copying. With a few rounds of this, the team becomes quicker and more precise in writing, designing, and creating, as the quality standard shifts from an unclear concept to a clear path. Fact 48. Successful individuals operate with a long-term perspective. In parallel with achieving quick victories, they construct assets that mature slowly and continue to function even when they are not actively engaged. These are referred to as value trees. This category includes a knowledge repository featuring clearly documented case studies, a collection of modules and scripts designed for repeated use, content that maintains its relevance over extended periods, evergreen content, collaborative relationships that foster a continuous stream of incoming opportunities, and automated systems that eliminate numerous hours of routine tasks on a monthly basis. Their schedule incorporates an investor hour. On a weekly basis, they dedicate effort to developing an asset that will provide returns over several months. Examples include enhancing a guide to become a permanent article, converting an effective email into a reusable template, or organizing internal operational practices into an educational module. The guiding principle is value half-life. If an outcome has a limited duration of usefulness, its associated cost is reduced. Conversely, if it remains valuable for an extended period, more time is allocated to its maintenance or enhancement. This diversified portfolio of assets alleviates future workload. The level of urgency decreases, the predictable influx of outcomes increases, and the achievement of success becomes less reliant on immediate feelings or circumstances. Fact 49th. Productive individuals facing delays possess an exit strategy for sticky situations. The initial step involves reducing the task to a 5-minute physical action. Instead of write a report, the goal becomes open the draft and outline 3 sections. The second step is activating a dual timer, 10 minutes dedicated to poor performance without self-criticism, accompanied by a brief physical stretch to overcome inertia. The third step is shifting the processing method. If thoughts are stalled within text, transition to creating a sketch by hand. If the issue involves figures, verbalize them aloud and make a recording. The fourth step is employing an external reference point. Present the current progress to a colleague or your former self through a note detailing what has been accomplished and what is still needed. The fifth step is removing impediments. Close unnecessary browser tabs, pose a single question to the responsible party, and document any anxieties along with their mitigation plans. Collectively, these actions transform uncertainty into a clear direction. The brain receives a signal of forward momentum rather than unpreparedness. Frequently, a valuable insight appears precisely after the 10th minute of bad execution. The 50th fact. Their focus is not on internal perceptions of beautiful/unbeautiful, but on user value and practical application. They begin any project by defining the task a person hires a solution to perform, jobs to be done, outlining the situation, the problem, and the desired outcome. Based on this, they conduct brief interviews or observations, gathering friction maps that identify where people encounter difficulties, what they overlook, and which terms are unclear. The metric serves as a North Star, tied to actual behavior. Completed tasks, the time taken to achieve a result, a decrease in errors, and repeated use. Hypotheses are validated using minimal artifacts, such as a prototype, script, or mockup, rather than a full release, and are presented to 5 target users by Thursday. Feedback is documented systematically: fact, interpretation, solution. This process eliminates complacency and prioritizes empirical data. Success is assessed by the benefit provided, and habit formation by the speed at which this benefit becomes tangible. 51st fact: productive people control not only tasks, but also their own power portfolio, a map of skills that indicates where speed is growing. They divide competencies into 3 tiers: the core, essential for work to move forward; enhancers, which accelerate the core; and sustainers, which support energy and thought processes. Quarterly, they perform a revision. They note which 2 to 3 abilities acted as bottlenecks in projects and plan focused training for them with specific metrics: the speed of outlining a structure, the precision of time estimates, and the quality of communication based on a checklist. They adopt a T-shaped profile approach: one profound vertical skill and several robust horizontal ones for connecting with others. Each competency has a next micro level that is quantifiable through behavior, not abstract concepts. Consequently, growth ceases to be a general call to level up and transforms into an engineering blueprint, where a single link's improvement eliminates weeks of drag across the entire process. Fact 52nd: they neutralize cognitive biases by practicing decision hygiene. When facing a significant decision, they articulate not just a prediction, will we finish by September 15th, but also a probability, a genuine percentage of their confidence. Later, they review their prediction logs and self-calibrate. How accurately did their assessments align with outcomes? Whether they tend to inflate their confidence on familiar tasks or deflate it on unfamiliar ones. They specifically document discarded alternatives and the rationale behind those decisions to avoid the hindsight effect. The sunk cost syndrome is addressed by adhering to the principle: new information dictates a new choice. Prior investments are not grounds for continuation. They tackle their blind spots by employing red teams, colleagues who diligently identify vulnerabilities in their plans. For debatable situations, they utilize checklists and straightforward risk assessment scales, substituting emotional responses with numerical data. Consequently, their decisions achieve consistent quality. There are fewer spontaneous shifts in direction and more accurate adjustments of course based on factual evidence. 53rd fact: the financial side of their productivity is openly built into the process. A fund for experiments exists, a modest yet consistent budget allocated for prototypes and hypothesis testing, ensuring ideas aren't sold on mere attractive phrasing. Additionally, there is a learning fund, a set percentage designated for courses, books, and tools. This fund is safeguarded against immediate expenditures, functioning as a safeguard for future efficiency. Routine expenditures are shifted to an automatic mode, and calculations are performed in units of time, assessing how many life hours are acquired or conserved through a service, subscription, or automation. Tasks demanding significant effort are openly delegated to outsourcing, or substituted with services when the shadow hourly rate suggests greater advantage. Risks are managed by employing buffers and ensuring essential elements. Periods of high seasonal demand are anticipated with financial and temporal surpluses. This methodology prioritizes attention economy over stinginess. Each currency unit and hour contributes to the overall strategy, rather than being lost in unforeseen pressing matters. 54th fact: Their collection of tools is minimalist and compatible, akin to a well-crafted workshop. One task system acts as a single source of truth. Notes are in a format that's easy to search and store, simple text files, Markdown, and data is in tables with understandable fields for smooth migration. Communication channels are divided by purpose. Discussions are kept where decision history remains. Quick questions are routed to a separate hallway to prevent mixing with work items. Hotkeys and text expanders are viewed as fundamental skills, recouping hours within a month. Every quarter, a stack reset takes place. Unnecessary apps are deleted, overlapping functions are combined, backups are verified, and the recovery plan is checked. Integrations are constructed via straightforward connections, common folders, standard formats, templates. This leads to reduced software friction, fewer unexpected issues when the team expands, and increased speed on tasks that genuinely deliver value. 55th fact. The leadership habits of productive individuals are geared towards team stability, emphasizing autonomy, a clear objective, and opportunities for skill development. They set boundaries of freedom, specifying what is fixed, what can be altered, when to seek guidance, and when to make decisions autonomously, thus removing micromanagement. Feedback is delivered using an observation-effect-suggestion method to foster improvement rather than cause distress. Quiet periods are incorporated into the schedule for creative work by all team members, not solely the manager. Meetings are structured with distinct roles to ensure that an expert's opinion is not overshadowed by a chorus of status reports. The health of the process is assessed concurrently with outcomes. Task backlogs, unfinished work volume, and the frequency of overtime are tracked as early indicators of potential burnout. Work is reallocated before the system breaks down. This involves training deputies, documenting expertise, and scheduling slower phases after project launches. Such a culture ensures that success does not rely on one individual and sustains momentum over extended periods. The 56th fact states that productive people approach risk planning with the same carefulness they apply to their plans. Each important project has a single-page risk passport that includes the objective and success metrics, 3 primary threats, early warning signs, an alert threshold, and pre-arranged responses for when these occur. For example, a data delay of over 48 hours serves as a yellow indicator, activating the simplified model without segmentation protocol. Similarly, the departure of a key contractor is a red indicator, necessitating a shift to Plan B, which involves a pre-checked backup contractor. This passport is reviewed weekly during a short stand-up meeting, where they track activated markers, depleted buffers, and dependencies needing manual attention. Such a structured approach converts chaos into control. Risks are not based on mere intuition, but are clearly visible, recognizing time as a valuable asset, making any prompt decision more cost-effective than a last-minute heroic effort. Fact 57th. Their efficiency is maintained through default decisions, which are standards that eliminate hundreds of small choices each week. A new document originates not from scratch, but from a template. It includes a title, objective, definition of ready, a risk section, and a decision log. Standardized emails for common situations, responding to a brief, clarifying requirements, or moving a deadline are stored in a text expander. With a few keyboard shortcuts, a draft with the correct structure is generated, requiring only the addition of specific context. Meetings are closed using a consistent formula: result, responsible person, by deadline. And this summary is promptly added to the central log. Design work benefits from a component library. Data handling utilizes a unified metrics glossary, ensuring conversion has a singular meaning across all applications. These standards are not kept in a separate location, but are integrated into the workflow, fixed within templates and checklists. Consequently, there is reduced initial friction, smoother transitions between team members, and fewer mistakes stemming from varied word interpretations. 58th fact. Demonstrations serve as a pace driver. Rather than waiting for an ideal moment, "we'll present when it's perfect," productive teams implement a weekly ritual, a brief demo every Friday using the was-is blocking format. Whether it's 3 slides or a single screen, the purpose is not a spectacle, but a value assessment, identifying what's functional, its user importance, and existing impediments. Attendance at demos is limited to decision makers or those who can resolve blockers. Questions are documented, and debated points are formalized in a decision paper with options. This systematic approach combats the "we're almost there" delusion, transforming weeks into quantifiable progress. Furthermore, it yields a psychological benefit. The public cadence discourages excessive refinement of minor details. Teams develop the ability to articulate progress concretely, moving beyond vague statements like, "it's going all right," and to view the product from an audience perspective, not solely as creators. Consistent demos act as the project's metronome, dictating the tempo for all other operations. Fact 59th. Productive people, when facing creative challenges, separate their work into expand and narrow phases. First comes divergence. A time-bound period is set where no judgment or changes are allowed. The goal is to brainstorm the maximum number of ideas, even if they are rough or unconventional. Helpful techniques include reverse idea, drawing parallels from different fields, or adapting successful external solutions to a new context. This is followed by convergence. Specific selection criteria are established: objective, limitations, risks, speed of testing. And selection is made via dot voting or scoring. Each chosen option receives kill criteria, conditions that allow its rejection without argument. An interim deliverable is required. This could be a sketch, a written script, or a working prototype. This approach resolves the constant feeling of wrong or not quite right and turns inspiration into a manageable process. It allows for both free exploration and strict decision-making, and the team clearly knows whether unrestrained idea generation or careful selection is needed at that point. Fact 60. Productive people's memory is external and operates in intervals. They keep an operational glossary for their projects, listing terms, adopted abbreviations, and assumptions, so that new personnel don't spend weeks figuring out others' words. Knowledge that needs repeating, formulas, commands, methods, is kept in cards with examples and checked using spaced intervals. Today, 3 days from now, a week later, a month later. Each card is focused on an action: how to construct table X, what fields are required for report Y, template for answering query Z. Notes contain direct links. A solution leads to data, data to its source, and the source to the context. At the week's end, a brief review occurs. Which 2 cards offered genuine time savings and which have become obsolete and need updating? This second brain isn't about a store of quotes, but about faster execution. Fewer delays on "how did we do this last time?" More certainty that knowledge will be found at the right moment and in a working format. 61st fact. Productive individuals decrease the tax of choice by adopting standardized daily routines, capsule wardrobes, consistent meal plans, and pre-prepared food sets for regular days. This approach promotes morning predictability rather than monotony. When items like shirts, shoes, bags, and chargers have designated spots and usage rules, the brain conserves energy that would otherwise be spent on small decisions. Meal planning follows similar templates. 5 core lunch options are rotated weekly, and Sundays are dedicated to grocery shopping and meal preparation, with portions portioned into containers and labeled with dates. The morning routine operates on an autopilot mode: water, light, clothing, a familiar breakfast, and a brief walk, eliminating internal debate. For work engagements, pre-packed kits are ready: a laptop with its charger, necessary adapters, headphones, a notebook, and a pen, all organized in a single case. Minimizing minor daily friction points facilitates entry into a focused workflow. Creativity thrives in an orderly environment, not diminishes, as attention is directed towards essential tasks instead of trivial choices like clothing or snacks. Fact 62nd. When a day is not going well, productive people switch to a minimum viable day mode, a trajectory-saving protocol. It begins with a 3 to 5 minute freeze. Drink water, breathe, and make a quick note of what's happening. Next is a strict triage. Tasks are sorted into 3 groups: must do today, can be moved without problems, and not essential. For the must-do tasks, one focused, interruption-proof block is allocated. Movable tasks are genuinely rescheduled. A brief email saying, "Risk identified, here are 2 options," with new deadlines and less work. Non-essential tasks are politely declined. New commitments are put on hold until day's end. Notifications go to Do Not Disturb, and the to-do list is cut down to a single action for each task. The end involves a short review: what got done, what was moved, what was the obstacle, and how to prevent it again. This crisis plan puts control back in chaotic moments, substituting panic with a series of small wins and a maintained reputation. Fact 63rd. Cyber hygiene is a component of their productivity, as a single incident can nullify weeks of work. Consequently, they employ a password manager, unique and lengthy phrases for every service, and multi-factor authentication for their email, cloud storage for documents, and financial accounts, with a preference for hardware keys. Public Wi-Fi connections are accessed exclusively VPN. Administrative access is provided on a least privilege basis, and temporary contractor logins are deactivated upon sprint completion. Phishing attempts are thwarted by established protocols, avoiding links in unsolicited emails, verifying domains and attachments, and utilizing the password manager for autofill rather than manual input. Every quarter, a security hour is dedicated to device checks, software updates, access permission reviews, and securing offline backup codes for 2-factor authentication. In the event of device loss, a Burn the Bridge protocol is initiated, involving remote data erasure, the resetting of critical passwords, and team notification. This practice is not about paranoia. It's an investment in safeguarding time and data, which proves beneficial even at the first instance of a close call incident. Fact 63rd. Cyber hygiene is integral to their productivity. One incident can wipe out weeks of work. Thus, they utilize a password manager, employing unique, long phrases for each service, and multi-factor authentication for email, document clouds, and financial services. Hardware keys are preferred. Public Wi-Fi is accessed only through a VPN. Admin access follows the principle of least privilege, and temporary contractor logins are terminated at the sprint's end. Phishing is intercepted through guidelines: no clicking links in unexpected emails, verifying domains and attachments, and using the password manager for autofill, not manual typing. A quarterly security hour involves device checks, updates, access right reviews, and storing 2FA backup codes offline. If a device is lost, the Burn the Bridge plan is enacted: remote erasure, changing master passwords, and informing the team. This isn't paranoia. It's an insurance policy for time and data that pays for itself with the first near miss. Fact 64th. People who don't work alone achieve results more quickly. Productive workers integrate paired work and review routines. For intricate tasks, a driver/navigator session lasting 45 to 90 minutes is beneficial. One person types while the other keeps track of the context and poses questions, with roles alternating based on a timer. When working with written material, the table read method is used, reading aloud by paragraph, identifying any points where pronunciation is difficult, as these are likely to be stumbling blocks for the reader too. Feedback should adhere to specific guidelines: observation, effect, suggestion, steering clear of subjective opinions. Any debated decisions are recorded in a document alongside alternative options. Prior to a review, the rubber duck technique can be helpful. For 5 minutes, explain the task to yourself and note down any insights gained. Additionally, silent sprints are an option. A collective timer, a shared objective with cameras enabled. Each person works in their own space but feels connected. The session concludes with a 3-minute demonstration of the work produced. This type of social engagement helps to overcome obstacles, identify mistakes sooner, and provides the brain with an external tempo that resists procrastination. Fact 65th. Their public presentations and project defenses are not improvised, but are conducted according to a rehearsal checklist. Initially, a rough draft run on camera takes place. Its purpose is to verify the logic, speech tempo, and duration of pauses, rather than visual appeal. This recording is subsequently reviewed, noting items to simplify, condense, or illustrate with examples. Following this, a desk review is held with a colleague, where each slide is limited to a single thesis and a single figure, with superfluous information being eliminated. Audio and video materials are duplicated. The presentation is supplied in 3 formats: editable, PDF, video. A copy is stored on a flash drive and in cloud storage. Fonts are embedded, and an offline demonstration capability is ensured. The presenter's bag contains a presenter's kit, with adapters, an extension cord, spare batteries, a clicker, a marker, and cable ties. 24 hours prior, the venue is inspected. The screen and sound system are checked. Earplugs are prepared for pre-presentation focus, and a contingency plan without slides is developed, comprising a structure of 3 narratives and a table with essential figures. Consequently, there is a reduction in unpredictability and nervousness, leading to enhanced control over crucial elements, the content, audience engagement, and adherence to the schedule. Fact 66th. Productive people have a practice called calendar archaeology, a clear examination of the preceding 30 days, grounded in facts rather than recollection. They extract their events and assign one of 3 straightforward labels to each time block: value received, a direct input towards a goal; system upkeep, sustaining operational processes; or noise, yielding no benefit. Subsequently, they compute the percentages and generate a heat map indicating where time was spent and what genuinely drove progress. Repetitive meetings identified as noise and lacking decisions are either eliminated or shifted to an asynchronous format. Periods yielding high returns are designated as inviolable. Maintenance tasks are streamlined using templates. Concurrently, regular activities undergo reassessment. Each time commitment requires renewed approval, preventing it from morphing into a burden. The result is specific adjustments for the upcoming period, eliminating 2 unproductive calls, doubling the morning segments dedicated to the primary project, and reintroducing a single free buffer slot on Wednesday to prevent being overwhelmed by urgent matters. Fact 67th. Productive people hold an annual board meeting with themselves, a single-page report focusing on attention and outcomes. This document outlines the time's P&L, identifying income sources, projects yielding measurable results, expenses, non-scalable routine tasks, and investments, learning, assets, partnerships. It also includes a decision map detailing critical junctures and the reasoning behind them. 3 annual stories explain causality rather than emotions, following a pattern of hypothesis, action, fact, and conclusion. The report finishes with a stop/continue/start matrix, specifying dates and first actions. It eschews broad declarations like "be better" in favor of concrete behavioral shifts. Discontinue Free Friday consultations. Convert the onboarding process into a video guide. Allocate 40 minutes each week for expert correspondence. This structure prevents self-deception and establishes a strategy for the upcoming year, ensuring each new habit has an assigned owner, a metric, and a time frame. Fact 68th. Managing dependencies is their routine superpower. Rather than vaguely stating waiting for analytics data, productive teams maintain an expectation log. This log details who is responsible for what, the required format, the deadline, and the agreed-upon service level agreement, SLA. Every dependency is equipped with a ping packet, a concise, standardized message providing context, a precise request, a sample of the anticipated output, and a fallback option. If the complete dataset isn't ready, please provide minimum X and we can create a simplified version. Escalation follows a predefined phased approach. A reminder after 24 hours, a backup plan activated after 48 hours, and a decision on scope reduction or deadline extension after 72 hours, documented for all involved parties. Dependencies are clearly flagged on the task board with a distinct waiting status and visible progress indicators. This practical method eliminates passive "it might come" from the workflow, transforming waiting into a controlled process with predictable outcomes and a reduced chance of compounding issues. Fact 69th. For decisions to be effective, productive people frequently engage directly with users or colleagues in their work environment. They establish brief observation cycles, conducting 5 to 7 30-minute interviews weekly with actual users or colleagues on site. They also utilize usage logs with attached photos or screenshots, and customer journey maps that detail the path from initial intent to final outcome, highlighting any difficulties or alternative routes. The questions posed focus on understanding user actions, time spent, and missed steps, rather than simply preferences. All collected materials are compiled into a central insight repository, with each item tagged and connected to relevant hypotheses. Modifications made are minor and swift. A button's text is changed, an unnecessary step is eliminated, a crucial field is emphasized, and behavioral metrics are reviewed after a week. This direct engagement approach reintroduces practical reality into the workplace, reducing arguments based on opinion and increasing reliance on factual usage data. Consequently, decisions become less detached, and the product or process better serves the actual tasks for which it is intended. Fact 70. The way they close cycles is not a quiet fading away, but a release note ritual. Each week, the team documents in 10 to 12 lines what was released and its significance, what tasks were intentionally deferred, which metrics will be monitored in the following week, and what is being archived. A single artifact accompanies the release notes, a screenshot, a document link, or a table image, to visually confirm completion rather than just stating it. Specific acknowledgments are also included for removing blockers, finding defects, or streamlining processes. By the quarter's end, a progress museum is created from these weekly entries, a compilation of artifacts and solutions that makes progress tangible and serves as a stronger motivator than any slogan. Concurrently, remaining tasks are handled. Development branches are archived, duplicate data is cleared, access rights are restricted, and checklists are updated. This clear-cut closing process reduces mental clutter, accelerates the integration of new team members, and instills a sense of accomplishment in the team, a vital resource that makes subsequent work smoother. Fact 71. Productive individuals transform tasks into scenes, a cinematic technique that removes ambiguity. Every scene includes a location, time, participants, necessary items, and a completion marker. Instead of "complete the report," it's "scene, conference room A from 10 o'clock to 11:30, participants, myself and the analyst, props, the XYZ spreadsheet, benchmark, the 2025 first quarter report example, scene conclusion, 3 sections with figures and a 1-page summary." This script-like recording eliminates abstract concepts and establishes concrete details: where the action will take place, who is required, what to start with, and what the end result should be. Blockers and tempo indicators are added to the scene. If structure isn't ready within 20 minutes, we switch to a thesis outline. Subsequently, these scenes are assembled into an act, representing a day's sprint, and assigned time codes. The trick is straightforward, but reduces procrastination because the brain perceives not formless, important work, but a brief episode with understandable settings and a final shot. Completion is marked by a tangible artifact, not a "it's time" feeling. Thus, the day forms as a series of finished segments. Fact 72nd. Effective professionals utilize automation and AI as a force multiplier, but with precautions. The workflow follows a brief, draft verification model, starting with a precise prompt detailing context, target audience, and completion criteria, followed by a rapid draft from the model or script, and concluding with human review for facts and style. Confidential information is protected by not being sent to external services. Input is anonymized, and offline tools are used for local tasks. Each generation is checked against a checklist: purpose conformity, data source validation, legal compliance, and stylistic appropriateness. A prompt log is kept, where effective prompts are saved as templated examples to prevent redundant effort. Batch processing is employed for routine activities like mass file renaming, automated table creation, and field autocompletion. For creative work, variations in phrasing and structure are provided, with the author retaining the final decision. Consequently, AI enhances speed without compromising accountability, leading to increased productivity without sacrificing quality or ethical standards. Fact 73rd. Energy for productive people is measured, not guessed by mood. They read their biomarkers like a control panel. 3 straightforward sensors: sleep duration and continuity, resting morning pulse, and a subjective alertness scale already offer a clear view. Heart rate variability, HRV, and the load from past days further enhance this. When the pulse is above the normal baseline and sleep is fragmented, mechanical tasks and coordination are prioritized over strategic decisions. Caffeine and intense training sessions belong in the morning. Evenings are for recovery. Specific red days follow a protocol: calendar blocking, a single core work session, and no new obligations. Conversely, green windows, when metrics are optimal, are allocated to deep creative work, demonstrations, and challenging negotiations. This method doesn't transform life into a fitness tracker, but removes the pushing through mentality. Decisions align with physiology, leading to more consistent success. Fact 74th. Contracts and established frameworks act as an unstated catalyst for increased productivity, particularly among freelancers and teams operating at the intersection of different functional areas. Successful partnerships involve the formalization of expectations. This is achieved through a statement of work, which clearly defines the scope of work, outlines artifacts at specific stages, sets completion criteria, and includes an SLA for feedback and a defined number of revision cycles. The process for making changes to the scope of work is stipulated in the contract. A change request, which includes an assessment of the impact on deadlines and budget to prevent schedule disruptions due to minor additions. Financial settlements are based on achieved results. An advance payment secures the project's commencement. An intermediate artifact forms the basis for a second payment, and final acceptance of the work concludes the financial transactions. Communication protocols are specified within the document. It indicates where reliable information regarding tasks can be found, which channels are used for urgent messages, and how silence should be interpreted, as agreement or disagreement. Intellectual property rights and licensing terms are agreed upon in advance. Ownership of source materials and the formats of transferred data are determined. This seemingly rigid legal framework paradoxically speeds up creative activity. It reduces the number of disputes, eliminates the need for guesswork, and ensures greater clarity and efficiency in addressing the project's core essence. The 75th fact is that they work seasonally, recognizing that a year isn't a straight, linear progression. They have power-up seasons for activities like training, building assets, and developing prototypes, and harvest seasons for releases, sales, and public engagement. Between these, there's an off-season dedicated to system maintenance. Each quarter starts by choosing a seasonal theme that dictates the week's focus, such as publications, data infrastructure, or partnerships. The calendar is adjusted for the season. Power-up periods feature more free time and buffer zones with fewer external obligations. Harvest seasons involve more frequent demos, firm deadlines for feedback, and enhanced support. Their metrics also change seasonally. During Power-Up, they track practice hours and completed work units, while during Harvest, they focus on conversion rates and the time it takes to achieve results. Following a peak period, a wind-down phase is essential. This involves a week of easier tasks, clearing outstanding work, and taking time off to prevent burnout. This approach, akin to agricultural cycles, eliminates the sense of an endless marathon, making success predictable, cyclical, and more humane. Fact 76. Their roadmaps function not as a dream list, but as a rigid now, next, later framework, enforcing WIP limits on each horizon. The Now section is reserved for tasks that are fully resourced and possess clear kill criteria, meaning conditions for undisputed task closure. The Next section holds hypotheses that have accompanying briefs and scheduled demo dates. Continuous deferral is not permitted. A monthly idea judgment process determines if an idea proceeds to active work, is archived, or requires revision. The Later section acts as a holding area, a refrigerator, where ideas are retrieved based on planned cycles rather than impulse. Each quarter is segmented into 2 to 3 bets, each defined by measurable metrics and distinct artifacts at key milestones. Every bet is assigned an owner, a buffer, and a dependency list with defined SLAs for responses. A spotlight review occurs every Friday to track metric changes, buffer consumption, and any emerging risks. This structured approach contains uncertainty within defined cells, governed by clear entry and exit protocols, preventing its diffusion throughout the calendar. The 77th fact. They manage debts like financiers do. They keep a debt book with 3 columns: technical, tools and infrastructure; process, holes in rituals and standards; and knowledge, unformalized decisions and expertise in heads. Each debt has a percentage, an assessment of how much time it costs weekly, extra clicks, repeating errors, prolonged approvals. Once every 2 weeks, repayment is scheduled, one large or several small items, so that the percentages do not eat up the future. Decisions about debt are made as if they were investments. If liquidation returns N hours per month, it competes for a place with features. Debt is not hidden in shame. It is made visible, a board with labels, risk, cost, benefit, and a rule. A project with critical debt cannot be closed. Such an approach protects speed in the long run. The team runs on a smooth path, not a field of bumps where every step is a loss of energy. Fact 78. Prior to significant competitions, effective people practice not just their performance, but also potential hindrances, a technique known as mental contrasting. It begins with visualizing the desired result, quantified by a specific metric. By Friday, a demo where a user navigates a scenario within 60 seconds. This is followed by an objective enumeration of challenges: unreliable data access, a propensity for over-refining text, and the danger of getting lost in conversations. Subsequently, if-then contingency plans are established. If data access is unavailable by noon, we will utilize artificial data. If a structure is not formed within 20 minutes, we will shift to using a thesis outline. If chat communications prove highly distracting, we will activate a Do Not Disturb mode and allocate a single time block for responses. The concluding step involves defining the initial action for the following day, opening the draft document, inserting the pre-made template, and entering the headings for each section. This structured approach dispels the false sense of absolute control and transforms the objective into a series of interconnected mechanisms, where even a setback is viewed as a planned occurrence rather than an insurmountable disaster. Fact 79th. Productive people utilize a personal operating system, the producer role, even if no team is present. They distinguish between working on the machine, artifact production, and working above the machine, planning, buffers, dependencies, communication. Mornings initiate the producer mode. 15 to 20 minutes are dedicated to arranging tasks, refining done criteria, dispatching dependency requests, and updating the risk register. The daytime is characterized by the executor mode, involving focused work based on time codes. Evenings feature a concise daily debrief, noting completed items, identifying blockers, and outlining the next day's agenda. With an assistant, the producer creates operator-level directives, checklists for reservations, data gathering, and reporting to delegate routine operations. This minimizes internal role clashes. The strategist and the craftsman do not compete for the same time, and the system maintains a consistent tempo, free from fluctuations. The 80th fact. They approach crises like reliability engineers, using pre-written runbooks, recovery scenarios. Within a dedicated folder are templates for 3 tiers: operational glitches, like a broken laptop or software, reputational hazards, an error in a publicly visible item, and scheduling breakdowns, overlapping deadlines. Each plan details the initial 15 minutes, whom to inform, what actions to halt, what basic output to provide, and the location of backups and contact information. Prepared statements are available, acknowledging mistakes without making excuses, outlining a correction strategy, and setting revised timelines with potential scope adjustments. Simultaneously, a status page is kept for stakeholders, a single, continuously updated document that tracks the progress of the resolution. Every quarter, exercises are held. An emergency is simulated and the recovery steps are practiced, from remotely wiping a device to issuing a patch. This leads to reduced panic, quicker recovery, and maintained credibility. Crises are treated as system evaluations rather than matters of luck. Fact 81. Effective teams keep a clear journal of assumptions, a short document detailing what needs to be true for the plan to succeed. Every hypothesis gets a confidence rating in %, its source, historical data / interviews / expert opinion, a review date, and a deal breaker, a fact that will zero out the confidence. For a campaign launch, it could be stated as CPL around 900 rubles, 70%, historical, landing page conversion rate 3 to 5%, 60%, previous quarter's test, CRM access by September 1st, 80%, agreement pending. Accompanying these are checks. If after 500 clicks, conversion is less than 2%, we switch to variant B. The journal is updated during weekly meetings. Assumptions become known facts, are rephrased, or are closed with the reason for closure. This reality catalog dispels misleading narratives, minimizes expensive, unexpected events, and makes strategic shifts predictable. The team discusses not emotions, but assumptions and the evidence of their testing. Fact 82nd. Language serves as their speed instrument, leading to tasks being formulated with engineering precision. Perfective verb plus artifact plus criterion deadline. Instead of work on presentation, it's compile a draft of 10 slides version 0.1 by 4 p.m. One thesis per slide, no animation, font X. Instead of handle the report, it's export the third quarter sales table, fields A through F, compare it with the second quarter, and present 3 conclusions by 12:30. Words that blur meaning, such as think, work on, or adhere to, are forbidden. Correspondence follows the same grammatical pattern. The upper paragraph outlines the objective and the action. It is necessary to select from 2 options today, and the lower part details outcome, Who by when. Units of measurement eliminate personal bias. Seconds for a video clip. Pages, screens, units, or versions like V0.1/V1.0. This linguistic hygiene is extremely inexpensive and significantly reduces communication friction, resulting in fewer clarifications, fewer rework cycles, and fewer complaints about misunderstandings. I didn't get it right, thereby transforming the calendar from a realm of speculation into a clear plan. Fact 83. They save minutes when returning to tasks via context anchors. Each session ends with a short project card. Where I left off, 1 sentence. Next 2 steps, 5-minute actions. Expectations/dependencies, and links files. A guide note is placed in the text. /next, method section, insert graph A. Data is located at /reports/2025 Q3. For complicated tasks, a screenshot of the current state and a brief audio note to oneself for tomorrow are created, 30 to 60 seconds to get back into the logic. The working environment is preserved in bouquets. A collection of tabs, windows for a project opens with a single click, and excess ones are closed. The initial step upon returning is minimal. Complete 1 sentence, run 1 test, format 1 block. Anchors reduce startup friction, remove the fear of a blank page, and transform each return into a gentle ramp-up, not a new climb over a wall. Cumulatively, this saves hours monthly and significantly flattens the attention span. Fact 84th. Hidden knowledge is extracted via shadowing and reverse interviews. A newcomer first observes an expert in person, not the result, but the workflow. Which windows are opened, which checks are done, the sequence of micro-decisions. Subsequently, roles are reversed. The novice executes the task, while the expert poses clarifying questions, identifying blind spots. This is promptly converted into operational procedures, a checklist of 10 to 15 steps, a benchmark artifact of a finished product, frequent errors, and rapid quality tests. Within 2 weeks, shadowing is enhanced by a reversed interview. The novice explains the process logic to a third person, reinforcing team knowledge. This conveyor belt turns individual talent into a system asset, reducing onboarding time, lessening quality's reliance on mood, and moving the magic of work from individual minds to understandable, testable steps available to every successor. The 85th fact. Their predictions are not a fixed point but a range with specified boundaries. Publicly, a 90% chance for date/volume is shared. For instance, delivery between September 12th and 16th, with the basic version featuring 8 screens. Internally, an earlier target is set to create a buffer. Tolerances are also noted. If metric X falls outside the 2-3 standard deviation range or the agreed corridor, scenario B will be implemented. Scenarios are predetermined. Reduce scope to the minimum viable product. Shift N hours from project Y. Delay the demo by 24 hours with Z compensation. Estimates are treated as distributions. The 50th percentile is used for resource planning, and the 90th percentile for commitments. The board displays triggers for decision points. 48 hours after start without data access, or if the prototype fails testing with 5 out of 7 users. The decision is automatically triggered, requiring no further approvals. This method acknowledges uncertainty. The schedule becomes less brittle, and stakeholder interests are safeguarded by clear, predefined rules for navigating challenges, established before any issues arise. Fact 86th. Productive people build their plans based on priority and energy type. They divide tasks into 4 baskets: deep solitary, like architecture, writing, analysis; deep social, for one-on-one strategic talks; light solitary, for routine reports, sorting files; and light social, for status calls, quick agreements. Morning hours are dedicated to the first type, the middle of the day to the second, and the afternoon decline to the light types. Inside these baskets, tasks are sorted by brain temperature. When one is most alert and their pulse is high, they take creative risks. When their energy is lower, they do predictable tasks. Emotional valence is also factored in. Tough conversations are placed in times with higher empathy and self-control. This energy timing method doesn't rely on willpower but adjusts the system to physiology, resulting in fewer wasted efforts, less self-sabotage, and a much greater likelihood of finishing difficult tasks without getting worn out. Fact number 87. Quick learners acquire knowledge from top performers in a structured manner. They conduct a bi-weekly benchmarking ritual termed Anatomy of the Standard, which relies on data rather than popularity. An external product, presentation, or case study is chosen, and a table of parameters is constructed. The duration until initial value is delivered, the number of steps in a core workflow, the concentration of facts per minute, the clarity of visual hierarchy, and the identification of drop-off points. Subsequently, a brief session takes place. The team attempts to replicate their own version within a 90-minute time frame to pinpoint areas of momentum loss. Two outputs are generated: a checklist of principles extracted from the standard, and an experiment for the upcoming week, a concrete hypothesis for enhancement with a measurable metric. Examples include decrease the user journey by a single click, or boost the rate of specific facts to 1 every 20 seconds. This process transforms envy into a functional instrument. External market benchmarks serve as quality benchmarks, and enhancements are not matters of taste but quantifiable actions that speed up operations in the subsequent sprint. Fact 88. The Project README acts as their insurance for speed, protecting against both vacations and emergencies. Everything needed for any competent colleague to take over the work in a day is found on one page: the project's objective and guiding metric, the definition of done, the current status, a file and access map, key decisions, ADRs with their dates, a list of dependencies and SLAs for responses, a demo schedule, risks with triggers, and a contingency plan for input delays. Every week, the README is updated and linked to the project card. Links point to live documents, not local directories. The format is standardized, similar to code. It specifies the version, e.g. v0.1/v1.0, includes a changelog, and identifies section owners. This reduces the bus factor, speeds up onboarding, and minimizes context loss from chats. Should the author be unexpectedly absent, the team follows the instructions, avoiding time spent on information retrieval, thus preserving the project's inertia. Fact 89th. Productive people transition between tasks via a context reset gate, a concise, disciplined procedure. Step 1. Capture context. Write 2 sentences detailing your stopping point and the initial 2 continuation steps in your project card, along with a direct link to the active file or its specific point. Step 2. Clear your workspace. Close extraneous tabs, save your current window arrangement as a preset, and commit or version your file with a descriptive tag like v0.3_draft. Step 3. Physically reset for 2 to 3 minutes. Drink water, look into the distance, and perform a light stretch to signal your brain that the current task is complete. Step 4. Begin the new task with a micro start. Undertake one measurable action for 60 to 120 seconds, such as inserting a template, generating headings, or opening a reference document. This structured approach minimizes time lost to overstimulation or procrastination, lowers the chance of forgetting minor unfinished items, and transforms your day into a series of finished segments rather than a jumbled sequence of interruptions and dropped threads. Fact 90. Lasting success is built on boundaries just as it is on ambition. Productive people clearly define their agreement with themselves and their close ones. This includes silent periods free from connection, for instance, from 8:30 in the evening until 7:30 in the morning. Rules for extremes. No new commitments after 6 in the evening. Weekends are exclusively for personal projects and recovery. And rituals for being present. Dinners without gadgets. Family walks marked in the calendar as non-negotiable appointments. Within this framework, well-being indicators are monitored. Sleep quality, pulse rate, the count of workouts, and weekly social hours. Should two of these indicators decline, a conservation mode is triggered, meaning a reduction in workload, rescheduling of tasks, and a 2 to 3 day vacation. Additionally, a semi-annual service package is in place. A week-long mini break taken away from work-related communications, a review of the year's topics, and the elimination of unnecessary commitments. This structure is not about preaching, but about engineering. It guards against achieving success at the expense of oneself, lessens conflict in relationships, and ensures that outcomes are repeatable, without dramatic ups and downs and while maintaining vital energy. Fact 91. Achieving quick onboarding is a deliberate 30, 60, 90-day strategy, not a matter of chance. High-performing employees establish a role passport in advance, outlining their quarterly objective, responsibilities, key performance indicators, and a stakeholder overview with interaction frequency. The initial 30 days focus on integration and achieving small wins, such as completing a single deliverable to foster confidence and grasp quality standards. By the 60-day mark, the expectation is for the employee to manage a workflow independently and create a project README to share accumulated knowledge. By the 90-day milestone, the focus shifts to proactive process enhancements, like fixing inefficiencies, implementing automation, or revising checklists. The schedule incorporates a safe-to-ask session where newcomers can clarify context without fear of criticism. Mentors are allocated time for reviews and set clear expectations regarding pace and quality. This structured approach minimizes uncertainty, reduces anxiety about task correctness, and boosts team productivity, enabling new hires to focus on results rather than guesswork by the end of their first quarter. Fact 92. The shiny object syndrome is managed with engineering solutions. Productive people do not resist impulses. They put ideas into a holding pattern. Each new concept goes onto an idea list as a single line stating the objective, an expected metric, and a basic one-day test. Next comes a 48 to 72-hour cooling period. If after 3 days the idea is still relevant to the season's focus and matches the current bid, it moves to the experimentation phase with an N-hour budget and kill criteria. If the metric doesn't grow, close it without regret. To prevent being overwhelmed by idea generation, limits are set for attempts per sprint and a general experiment pool based on time/money. Ideas compete not on how well they are phrased, but on their predicted value. What minimal deliverable will provide a testable signal by Friday? This idea quarantine keeps boldness intact but safeguards the direction. Rather than erratic starts and stops, a smooth stream of tests emerges, where wins become investments and the rest go to the archive without any feeling of loss. Fact 93. Operating across different time zones necessitates careful coordination. Effective teams establish a 24-hour relay. Each time zone has designated twilight windows, brief periods of overlap for addressing critical issues, with all other communication happening asynchronously. UTC serves as the standard language, and deadlines are specified with exact dates and times, avoiding vague terms like today or tomorrow. A shift handover is structured as a comprehensive package rather than an informal check this later message. This package includes the status of completed and pending tasks, a list of impediments with assigned owners, necessary artifacts, and clear first 2 steps for the subsequent team member. All decisions are recorded in a shared log to prevent them from being lost within the messenger's stream. Meetings are scheduled on a rotating weekly basis to ensure the workload is evenly distributed and doesn't consistently burden one group. Emergency communication channels are pre-identified and designated quiet windows are consistently observed. The principle of no critical releases occurring overnight for any specific zone helps to minimize mistakes and prevent dissatisfaction. Consequently, the team operates not under constant jet lag, but within a predictable follow-the-sun cadence, where velocity is generated through the high quality of information exchange rather than through continuous online availability. Fact 94 highlights information gains impact when spoken in the language of visual literacy. Productive people organize their findings onto one page, stating the goal, a main graph, two tables with their underlying assumptions, and a concluding paragraph. Graphs are built correctly, not just attractively, including UIT labels, zero on the axis when needed, without scale breaks for drama. The average doesn't substitute the median with outliers. For exponential growth, use a logarithmic scale, but clearly mark it. Comparisons are placed next to each other, using small multiples, not by altering scales. Percentages are paired with absolute numbers. Errors and confidence intervals are displayed to avoid misrepresenting precision. Each graph addresses one question and contains an actionable item, a decision for the process. Such rigor saves hours of arguments and miles of emails. The team sees a clean picture, not a trend feeling, allowing decisions today without extra archaeology in raw spreadsheets. The 95th fact. Legal hygiene is an understated yet crucial practice for effective people. One issue can cause a project to stop for weeks. They keep records of licenses and consents, the origin of photos, fonts, music, code snippets, their usage terms, whether attribution is needed, and their validity period. Images of individuals are paired with model releases. Personal data is either anonymized or gathered with clear consent and the least required amount. And access is given according to the minimum rights principle. Non-disclosure agreements and IP transfer terms are well organized, and contract templates outline rights to source materials and the process for edits. Before publishing, a checklist is used, checking sources and licenses, commercial rights, no forbidden brands, sensitive information, and proper attribution. When in doubt, it's stop for verification. Such foresight is about efficiency, not red tape. Clear rules and clean records mean releases happen without delays, and reputation supports the project instead of hindering it. Fact 96th. Productive people possess invariance, a core set of principles that remain constant regardless of task changes, team compositions, or technological advancements. It functions as a brief, almost technical guide outlining, an artifact is more important than words. Decisions and assumptions must be recorded in writing. Statuses are public by default. Mistakes are admitted early, along with a plan to fix them. Data takes precedence over hierarchy, and time is a limited resource managed via WIP limits. These principles are not merely displayed, but are integrated into workflows, appearing in brief templates, email structures, ready criteria, and communication protocols. Every quarter, these invariants are revisited in retrospectives to assess their effectiveness, identify areas for refinement, and determine new indicators to incorporate. Consequently, teams avoid ideological disputes during high-pressure situations because a stable framework exists, allowing disagreements to be quickly framed as aligns with/deviates from principle rather than subjective opinions. Predictability in these foundational elements is the source of speed. Fact 97th. They possess a shutdown protocol, a civilized method for discontinuing projects that have ceased to deliver value. It commences not with feelings, but with pre-agreed kill criteria, metric thresholds, periods of no progress, increasing debt, or loss of access to essential resources. When a criterion is met, the process automatically begins. A brief document explaining the closure, extracted lessons, a list of artifacts to be transferred, code, designs, templates, a stakeholder communication plan, and the secure archiving of the repository access. A distinct component is value preservation, identifying reusable elements, publishable case studies, or potential internal modules. Additionally, there's a freeze option. If the cause for stopping is external and temporary, the project is put on hold with a scheduled review date. This protocol shields the team from wasted expenses and demoralizing situations. Rather than persisting out of stubbornness, it offers a clear conclusion, freeing up capacity and focus for initiatives that genuinely drive progress. The 98th fact is that they avoid aiming for full 100% utilization. This stems from their knowledge of queuing system principles. As utilization increases, waiting times and defect rates escalate rapidly. Consequently, their target utilization rate is set at approximately 70 to 85% for roles focused on creation. The remaining capacity serves as a buffer for unexpected events, reviews, and process enhancements. This approach is not a sign of idleness, but rather an application of flow engineering. Shorter queues lead to a compressed request-response cycle, reducing overhead from task switching and minimizing the handover of problematic tasks, hot potatoes, to other teams. Planning relies on speed, meaning throughput, and historical completion data, rather than on aspirations for extraordinary efforts. By visualizing queues, using status boards, tracking time spent in each stage, and setting work-in-progress limits, they can identify potential bottlenecks before they become critical issues. The outcome is counterintuitive. By focusing on completing fewer tasks concurrently, they ultimately achieve a higher total output with fewer instances of rework, as the workflow remains smooth and orderly, preventing it from devolving into chaotic turbulence. Fact 99th. Distribution for them is not a post-event action, but a core element of the outcome's design. Prior to drafting a report, launching a tool, or producing a video, they define a channel map, identifying the audience, their current locations, the suitable format for their context, such as a one-page letter, a graph-based thread, or a brief demo, and potential amplifiers like partners, opinion leaders, or internal mailing lists. They schedule the frequency and repetition, a primary launch followed by multiple echo engagements offering fresh perspectives and facts, rather than repetitive spam. Each channel is assigned a quantifiable objective and an engagement trigger, the action expected from the user post-interaction. Materials are crafted with distribution in mind, a preview screenshot, a 30-second synopsis, and a single-page FAQ. Performance is tracked using UTM parameters and behavioral metrics, not social media likes. This perspective converts value into impact. Effective content actively reaches its intended audience in a user-friendly format and at the opportune moment, rather than passively waiting to be discovered. Fact 100. Their primary secret lies not in willpower or charisma, but in a functional human operating system. This is a single, concise handbook that integrates goals, principles, rituals, checklists, templates, and metrics. It includes the year's theme and guiding principles, invariant rules and if-then policies, a schedule for focused work periods and project showcase days, communication standards and artifact formats, a risk register and shutdown procedures, an asset inventory, and safety guidelines. This document is an integral part of the workflow. It is updated weekly on Fridays, connects projects via links, maintains version control, and logs changes. New practices are implemented via a one-week A/B test and are adopted permanently only if they yield measurable positive results. Should an individual be unexpectedly unavailable, the system remains operational. Work scenarios, dependencies, and completion criteria are clear to others. Success in this context is not a sudden burst, but a consistent, steady performance, a predictable stream of completed tasks, where each incremental improvement, measured in percentages, accumulates into significant progress over the course of a year.